You only need to know me. I will be the one.
We're finally headed to Elbaf, and many are wondering what that arc has in store. I dropped a video recently about the gods of Elbaf, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely check it out after this, as the sun god Nika is unlikely to be the only god that Elbaf has a story about. After all, Elbaf is the land of fables. There should be stories about a lot of things, including the gods. But I think the giants of Elbaf have something else that is worth sharing with us besides captivating stories. What should also draw our attention is the special power the giant race possesses. And given events over the course of One Piece and most recently the conclusion of Egghead Island, there is strong reason to believe that the unique power of the giants will have something to do with Haki, or their spirits generally, and that the power of the giants, what awaits us on Elbaf, could turn Elbaf into some sort of training arc for the Straw Hats. A training arc for the finale of the series. A training arc where not just devil fruit powers improve, become better understood, maybe even awakened, but an arc where Haki reaches an unseen pinnacle. Luffy's final Haki bloom. So what can the Straw Hats expect for Elbaf to be a training arc? What unique power might the giants have? What will Luffy ultimately come away from that island having learned? I mentioned devil fruits, and I mainly pointed this out because of Luffy's mythical Zoan sun god, Nika devil fruit. That the sun god Nika is one of many stories or fables told across Elbaf, and it's possible Luffy will learn more about the sun god and in the process more about his own powers, and likely display new abilities with them that we have yet to see. I honestly find it hard to believe that Luffy has shown us everything, that Gear 5 is the limit, Luffy's peak, as he called it during Wano and the finale of the battle against Kaido on Onigashima. With at least 5 to 6 years of the story left to go, I believe, Elbaf, Laugh Tale, the final war, other islands in between then and now, possibly. Oda will no doubt give Luffy new power-ups in the coming years, for both his Haki and his Devil Fruit, given that the formerly called Gomu Gomu no Mi is a central pillar of the manga, a major identifier. If you run outside right now, punch somebody and yell Gomu Gomu no Mi, they're bound to recognize the words, and you're likely to end up in Impel Down. But for a new power-up, people speculated Luffy would eat the Mother Flame on Egghead Island to truly become the Sun God, and that didn't happen. The Gorosei were defeated by Joy Boy's Haki from the past, a gift from the past to the future to help the Straw Hats on their way. And so this takes us to the original purpose of this video, the coming Haki bloom for Monkey D. Luffy. I've had a lot of conversations with people that have subscribed to this channel about what makes the giants so special, besides their large size of course. And why is the world government so focused on replacing them or engaging in their own gigantification experiments? Is it just to make giant soldiers, or do the giants possess a power the world government wants for themselves? Every race in One Piece, minks, fishmen, Lunarians, and otherwise, we have seen from all of them elemental powers to a degree. Electricity, water, fire, manipulation of the elements. What do you think the giants are capable of doing? Are they in some way wind benders or storm benders? Can you do that with Haki? I can't think of anything elemental that hasn't already been covered besides wind. And if it's not an elemental ability of theirs, then Haki might be the answer. The very fact that the giants of Elbaf are connected to Shanks view him as a hero, a role model, then they would likely model themselves after him, would they not? Or rather, given that the giants have lived for hundreds of years, some of them possibly longer, it's likely the giants have been capable of doing whatever they're capable of doing on their own and simply share their aptitude for combat and Haki with Shanks, deeply admiring his unique strength of will. But the giants have said similar things to Shanks throughout the story, such as, "There are things in this world that cannot be stopped," in chapter 1106 when coming to rescue the sun god Luffy at Egghead. and prior to that on Elbaf when defeating the Eustace Kid pirates. The giants mirroring the words of Shanks back during Fuchsia Village, Chapter 1, when those bandits pointed a gun at him. The giants saying similar words, that if you point your guns at someone, what goes around comes around. Just as Shanks said to bet your life on it. If Oda found it important enough to mirror the values and mindset of Shanks and the giants, then why not also mirror the Haki focus of Shanks with a Haki focus for some of the giants? But in what way? Which Haki power exactly? Conquerors does make the most sense, but every advanced Haki ability could be on display from the giants as well. Think for a moment what it means that the Haki of the human Shanks could impress the Haki of giants, the 100, perhaps even 1,000-year-old Haki of giants, if some that old exist. But Rayleigh told us about Conqueror's Haki and how you cannot train it. It grows on its own through hardship, trials and tribulations, tremendous adversity, pressure over time, like making diamonds, sometimes growing significantly. Like other forms of Haki, even Conquerors can have a Haki bloom. I think it's possible Rayleigh already spoiled the advanced Haki or Haki training of Elbaf, based on his initial introduction to the story during Sabaody. Mind you, the island that Rayleigh would actually train Luffy on for the time skip in terms of Haki training, that island was also full of giant creatures that Luffy had to fight and overcome. Just as Elbaf will also have its own giant creatures. So another parallel. But in chapter 500, we see Rayleigh sitting in a prison cell and he uses Conqueror's Haki to knock out the person that was hitting the mermaid. The giant sitting next to him immediately realizes that Rayleigh is responsible, that this old man imprisoned with him could use Conquerors and was no normal man, which suggests Conquerors is understood by the giants to be a significant ability, an ability many like Danchin Zhao and even Treble with Doflamingo, describing one anointed by heaven, and also Kaido when talking about the superiority of Haki compared to Devil Fruit abilities. All recognize Haki Conquerors as a power that separates the weak from the strong, Conquerors belonging to potential kings. In chapter 503, Rayleigh walks out to meet Luffy and free the mermaid and displays advanced Armament Haki and Conqueror's Haki, showing up Haki with the same giant from before walking beside him. The name of the giant that was locked up with Rayleigh is Stansen. He is the shipwright of the new giant warrior pirates who are currently a part of Luffy's grand fleet. So the giant that was freed by Rayleigh during Sabaody is now sworn to Luffy by way of Hadruden, I'd imagine. Though the 3 skulls on his outfit are ominous, given Blackbeard. He also appears as a child in Big Mom's flashback of Elbaf. So Stansen the Giant might be a surprisingly important character for the Elbaf arc. But it's important to note, this giant Stansen of the new giant warrior pirates is associated with the Haki master Rayleigh that taught Luffy Haki. I wonder what Stansen is capable of doing. Is he as strong as Hadruden? Hadruden who showed off not just his strength, but his tremendous willpower during Dressrosa to send the heavy-ton man Makvice flying to the sky towards what he called the kingdom of the gods. Was Oda giving us a glimpse here as to what the giants can do? They are swordsmen, axemen, shield warriors, shield maidens, and so on. Some might even be Haki masters with unusually strong spirits forged over the course of centuries for those that have seen my Gorosei Elder Haki video. Haki that has been forged under the duress of time for hundreds of years. Hadruden displaying a will to win, despite breaking his bones and pushing his body to the limit to do so. Maybe this upgraded Haki ability of the giants, this ability of will to overcome or conquer any obstacle. But in a recent video about giant gods, or the gods of Elbaf, I mentioned an aspect of Viking culture in the Norse that is worth addressing. Berserkers were those who were said to have fought in a trance-like fury, overcoming serious pain, even life-threatening injuries, to continue fighting. Does this sound anything like what Hadruden did? Maybe a little bit, though not entirely. But it really could be a thing on Elbaf. Maybe the giants of Elbaf know how to overcome adversity by pushing through it with sheer willpower, conquering one obstacle after another to become the strongest country. If there is a final stage to Conquerors that we haven't seen yet, it might involve Luffy pushing himself past his limits, the peak of power we discussed earlier. What if Oda wants to push Luffy's limits, give him another peak, letting Luffy surpass Gear 5, and pushing his Devil Fruit even more by learning this final Haki ability? We might even call it a limit breaker. There are a few things about Hadruden that serve as foreshadowing for what's to come, I think. First, Hadruden is seen as a child or a young man in Big Mom's flashback, and Hadruden tells us his dream or goal is to become the King of the Giants. This sounds like Luffy becoming King of the Pirates, doesn't it? It's also interesting that Hadruden says he can become King of the Giants by acquiring the Mera Nomi, the Fire Logia Devil Fruit that could conjure a sun. Almost like Luffy's Sun God Devil Fruit minus the fire so far. The Sun God Nika is thought to be one of many gods of Elbaf, maybe, or one of many gods that the people of Elbaf worship. Elbaf giving thanks to the sun as a seasonal ritual every now and then. There is some overlap with becoming King of the Giants after getting the power of the sun, of fire in Devil Fruit form, and the story of the Sun God. But what Hadruden says about becoming a King of the Giants reminds me of Luffy becoming Pirate King, King of the Pirates. And so this takes us to what Don Chinjao said during the same Dressrosa arc about conquerors and kings and becoming Pirate King. Chinjao said that on these oceans you will run into any number of people with kingly potential, with the quality of a king. Characters with conquerors in One Piece tending to have the qualities of kings. So, you will run into other conquerors on these waters, is what he's saying, from island to island, and the title of Pirate King is decided by them, by who can conquer the others. Only a conqueror can become Pirate King, maybe even King of the world, by conquering his rivals, and ultimately, the sea itself. There really is a supreme king, and so for some, the path of becoming a king is aligned with being a conqueror. It is akin to having royal blood, but in this case, let's call it royal will. Conquerors being a sort of royal haki, reserved for a rare few that have the potential to become Pirate King. I compared Shanks to the giants, how similar they are, so let's compare him to Hadruden. Hadruden versus the Ton Man Mukvice. The breaking of his bones like a shield splintering. Hadruden was willing to sacrifice his body to win. In many ways he placed a bet that day to help Luffy. No different than Shanks losing his arm to the Sea King, followed by a display of conquerors, a dominating will. Shanks saying it was just an arm, a worthy sacrifice for the next king. Shanks explaining later on that he bet his arm on the New Age. Shanks tells the story of his missing arm to Whitebeard, who some theorize might be a secret buccaneer like Kuma. That maybe Kuma was not the only buccaneer left, and there were or are a few others out there still. I bring this up because of what Vegapunk revealed about the Buccaneers, that their buccaneer bloodline is special because it is a mix of human and giant, so giant's blood. But more importantly, the Buccaneers like Kuma have a special power that seems to explain how Kuma deactivated and made it to Egghead Island. We don't know if the special power of the Buccaneers is attributable solely to the giant's blood, or a mixture of human and giant. So it could be that only Buccaneers, those with both human and giant in them, have this special power. Or it could just be the giant side of things. The Gorosei Saturn implies it's a Buccaneer thing, not a giant thing, when calling for the Buccaneer erasure of Kuma and his people. But we'll find out more on Elbaf most likely. So just to repeat, the Haki Master Rayleigh's first appearance was in a prison cell with a giant from Elbaf that would come to join Luffy's Grand Fleet. Some say this is the very first Grand Fleet member we would ever meet without knowing it. This giant called out Rayleigh for using Conqueror's Haki to knock out some guards. In each instance during Sabaody as well as Egghead Island, we see giants acknowledging the powerful Haki of someone with a connection to Luffy, Rayleigh's Conqueror's Haki on Sabaody, and Shanks' Conqueror's Haki was compared to Joy Boy's on Egghead Island. Joy Boy's Time Bomb, or Time Bomb Haki, we could call it, given it was preserved for a specific moment, the right moment in time, before activating. Luffy might learn how to do something similar, but is it possible that Elbaf will focus on not just Haki, but a new level of Haki? The final level of Conquerors or some other use of Haki that we haven't seen yet. The unexplained power of Kuma. The power of the Buccaneers, people with giant's blood. What Saturn and other moments during Egghead teased about the power of love. Besides physical strength, besides the raw power and durability of the giants, the Buccaneers might have developed a unique ability given they are mixed or biracial, so to speak. Human blood and giant's blood. Or maybe this special attribute is linked to the giants specifically. In the blood of giants flows a special power. A common theme in writing is to contrast brute force with the human spirit. In One Piece and other series, we've seen small people with big hearts and strong spirits overcome adversaries larger and physically stronger than themselves. Therein the true measure of a man is not his size, but his will. This might be true of Elbaf, that such small humans like Shanks, like Luffy, like Joy Boy, maybe even like Usopp when we get to it. Appearances can be deceiving, and even that which is small can cast a large shadow. The story of David and Goliath that is often associated with Usopp in terms of theories of Elbaf. The will to win, the refusal to back down, the courage to fight has proven to be a powerful weapon. Owner Zeph referred to it as guts and a spear to pierce any armor, to crumble any obstacle. Usopp will pick up this spear on Elbaf and finally become a brave warrior. We hope. Speaking of Elbaf and the giants, let's go back to Hadrudin. During Big Mom's flashback, we see a young Hadrudin fighting, and he's told by an elder giant that your true opponent is yourself, Hadrudin. Essentially, you must defeat yourself, overcome yourself, surpass your own limitations, and by doing so conquer yourself. Will yourself to go beyond the limits you had envisioned. And so, what I said about Luffy's peak with Gear 5 and learning to surpass it during Elbaf, maybe Luffy will reach new heights, find a new peak, conquer his current limits with sheer willpower. Could this be something, a Haki technique that the giants know? Hadrudin breaking his bones to push himself to defeat Makavice. Luffy going beyond Gear 5 or whatever his current Haki limitations are, willing to risk death, pushing yourself past a barrier that will kill you, or would have killed you if you tried in the past. As a character, Usopp is conditioned by fear, a character whose story is largely about overcoming fear. Usopp is supposed to be very relatable, given his weaknesses in One Piece. Usopp is really the most human character of them all, and how a lot of people would act in the story if they were in his shoes. Not me, though. Anyways, the greatest fear that people have is the fear of death. Even Enel speaks on this by comparing fear and death to a sort of god that has dominion over mortal human lives. By sailing with Luffy, Usopp has found himself in countless near-death situations and will likely find himself in another on Elbaf. How brave will Usopp be if he really does stare death in the face? If there is a certainty that he is going to die if he does something, but he still does it anyways. A true act of courage. Conquering the fear of death is just as impressive as conquering death itself. Another test of will that could happen on Elbaf. And to end the video, I'll go over exactly why that is. A theory about Shanks that is supported by Norse mythology and Viking culture. There is a series called Vikings. I remember it on the History Channel that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The following is a quote as a legendary warrior dies. "It gladdens me to know that Odin prepares for a feast. Soon I shall be drinking ale from curved horns. This hero that comes into Valhalla does not lament his death. I shall not enter Odin's hall with fear. There, I shall wait for my sons to join me, and when they do, I will bask in their tales of triumph. The Azir will welcome me. My death comes without apology, and I welcome the Valkyries to summon me home." The Vikings did not fear death. The reason why people fear death is because we are not sure what will happen when we die. People always fear what they don't understand, don't they? But the Vikings were completely different. They had a picture in their mind of the afterlife, how it would end. They had in their mind a vision about the time and place where they would go when they passed away. It is universally accepted that death hurt both the deceased and the living. The Vikings mourned for the deceased, but because their loved ones had gone to a better afterlife, they would be happy about that. And I mean truly happy about that. Death was the beginning of another great journey. The Viking opinion of death helped foster the development of a monster spirit within every Viking warrior, that when confronted with the prospect of dying, to them it was not the ultimate loss, for they would respond, "It's only death." This is perhaps definitive of Shank's spirit, of Shank's character in the story thus far, and the physical sacrifices he has made as bets continuously on the new age. Losing an arm, losing a leg, losing an eye, even dying, is not so bad in the mind of a Viking. These sacrifices, life experiences, hardships, all these things make your spirit, your Haki, especially conquerors, stronger. Vikings believed the fear of death was akin to slavery. That to fear death is to allow it to enslave you. The challenge of Elbaf might require people to be willing to die to get to that next level. And given all the Usopp videos that have been popping up lately, I just wanted to say that Usopp's death, whether it happens or not, his death does make sense when you ask what happens when a person stops dreaming. When your dream is realized in this life, all there's left to do is die, really, as dark as that sounds. You finished the mission. You finished the game. Time to play a new one. Roger's dream, Ace's dream, Whitebeard's dream. All of them died after their dreams had partially been fulfilled. Although the true identity of Roger's dream, given that it should be the same as Luffy's, remains to be seen. Will Usopp die once his dream becomes reality? What else will the brave warrior want to do? But if Conquerors is supposed to be rare, then it's unlikely all the giants will have it. But some of the giants should. The giant kings are gods, the elite giant warriors, and the advanced kind of conquerors too. But if it is rare, what alternative scenario could there be for what the giants have to teach? Whether Haki or something else. Maybe willpower in general. There's another theory floating around about emotional Haki, or Haki influencing people's emotions, or emotions influencing Haki. Garp's Fist of Love comes to mind, Sanji mentioning the power of love, and Vegapunk speaking of love when trying to explain how Kuma willed himself to move, to protect others despite being technically dead. A body that wills itself to fight, even after it should have died a long time ago. Another example of this would be Whitebeard, as some have questioned if Whitebeard is also a buccaneer, as we did get a moment during Marineford, when Blackbeard wonders how a dead man can still move. That Whitebeard was supposed to be dead, but was glowing red, at least in the anime, and willing himself to stay alive and overcome an imminent death. He would of course later die. The final panel, Whitebeard, is one that gives off Conqueror's energy. And Whitebeard's actions in his final moments, defying death, extending his life through sheer willpower. Again, this takes us to my theory of Berserker, or Berserker Giants. Now, it doesn't seem like Hadrudin has Conqueror's Haki, and I don't think we've ever seen a giant in the story use Conquerors, have we? What would it look like to meet giants that can use Conquerors? Given their size, imagine how expansive that Conqueror's Haki could be felt. Even advanced Conquerors, or another level of advanced Haki. Conquerors is likely a signature feature of the Giants of Elbaf, given observation Haki has been tied to the sky island of Skypiea under the ancient name of Mantra. Armament Haki has been tied to the land of Wano under the ancient name of Rio. There must be an ancient name for Conquerors we don't yet know about. An advanced way of using Conquerors specifically that has yet to be shown. One thing I find interesting is the notion of storing Haki over time. Again, Joy Boy's Haki Time Bomb. But in a different sense. Haki not only blooms over time, it builds up. Your spirit might grow the longer you live. Not everybody has to get weaker, even if they do physically. More time for more experiences. Although some like Luffy experience a lot to challenge their spirit in a short amount of time. The anime rendition of Garp's Galaxy Impact showed us even more than the manga that even the elderly can use advanced Haki in incredible ways. You're never too old. And while Garp says he's not as strong as he used to be, we have two old Haki masters in Garp and Rayleigh, and others I might be forgetting. The old giants of Elbaf should have strong Haki built under the pressure of being alive and warriors for hundreds of years. The warrior giants Beardhill Jarul and Beardfall Jarul are considered heroes of the giants and are each over 300 years old. Now, given how one of them was defeated by Big Mom, you could make an argument that old age does wear you down. Maybe even in terms of Haki. But in other cases, maybe not. Besides that, how old exactly is a giant's prime? Are there giants older than them? Maybe giants that were around for the Void Century. The introduction of the elderly giants Beardhill and Beardfall comes with a box that reads Oldest Warriors in the World. It says Oldest Warriors, but it never said Oldest Giants in the World. Anyways, we'll soon find out if this ancient Haki does exist. But as usual, we will have to wait and see. Don't forget to like the video, comment with your thoughts below, and subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter at the following address, @VinlandRagnar. My Twitter page is on the screen. Also check out my other One Piece channel called Vinland Leaks, where I'll be making shorter One Piece videos and responding to your comments starting this month. And I'm trying out something entirely different with a channel called Vinland Dark, for those of you that like my darker One Piece videos. Again, links will be in the description box and pinned in the comment section below. As always, there is more to come. Until next time.